Ananda is located on the outskirts of Panchkula, which is part of the Chandigarh Tri-City. We live here with our 4 adopted dogs, 40 species of birds in a forest that we've built which has over 5,000 or 6,000 trees. We grow about 150 crops. We are fully self-sufficient in food. So when we bought the land here in 2010, it was about 25 to 30 lakhs an acre. After COVID, the land prices have shot up quite a bit and they might be even 10 times of what they were back then. So my life here on the farm is a slow life relative to the bustling city life. Even though we had bought this land in 2010, we used to still live in Mumbai. And we would travel here, we would do the plantations, we would, design the landscapes, do the rainwater harvesting. But we would go back to Mumbai because that's where we lived. And this started influencing a lot of our habits back in the city as well. I've spent almost my entire life in Mumbai. My first job was with Unilever. When I started my career in 1997, my salary was 20,000 rupees a month. It was a good salary. And within a few months, I was going to get married. So my job was to spend that money to build my own trousseau. In fact, I had to even borrow money from a friend to cover all those expenses. In 2004, I shifted to Colgate-Palmolive to head their innovation center. In 2010, I moved to Axis Bank as the chief marketing officer. In 2014, I focused on my own startup, Indian Art Collectors, which I ran for a few years. In 2018, I joined Clicks Capital as the chief marketing and digital officer. In 2019, I joined Uber India as the chief marketing officer. I would think that from the time I started earning to the time I ended my career, my salary would have grown 50-fold. In 2020, just before the pandemic, I quit Uber. For us, leaving the city and moving to Ananda, living here on the farm, was not an overnight decision. It was something that we had worked for about 12 years prior. When we started our career, I would say that our money used to finish by the end of the month. For the first 5 years, when we felt we were living sort of paycheck to paycheck, money mattered. And after some time, when we had some disposable income, when we became middle managers, and both of us started earning a little bit more, we were earning more than we were spending. Then, of course, we entered the phase of financial planning. Like, how do we save this money? How do we build a corpus? How do we work towards being financially free? Like, how do we work towards financial freedom so that we don't have to constantly think about money? I think financial freedom could probably have, 3 stages. The first stage is when you can earn what you think you want to earn or what you feel you deserve to earn. That's the first level of financial freedom. The second level is when you feel you can spend it the way you want. I think that's the second stage of financial freedom. And the third stage is when you can give it away. You can help somebody else with that money without feeling tight-fisted about it. And we achieved that. And that's why this whole transition and life change we could manage quite easily. When I left my last job, I didn't at all feel like I was giving up the money or giving up, anything, because in my head, I'd already checked out. So actually, in 2016, my husband had already quit his job. He wanted to be a stay-at-home dad. He wanted to spend time with our daughters before they went to college. In 2014, like I explained, I had resigned from Axis Bank. I worked on my own startup. So for us, we had already started thinking of an alternate life, or we had already started thinking about a life where we did not have that paycheck. And we were quite comfortable about that. I think maybe our parents' generation still comes from that mindset that, if you're getting more, why don't you take it? If you can earn for 20 more years, why will you stop earning today? So what if you have much more money and many more houses and things like that? But I think we don't have the same kind of perspective. So for example, I think the time that we've spent with our daughters before they've left for college is far more valuable than another piece of property or another mutual fund deposit or something else, somewhere else. And it's just a question about what you value in life and what you don't. When people make a very sudden move to the countryside, what happens is that they don't understand the countryside and they tend to carry their urban lifestyle into the village. So they'll buy a piece of land, the first thing they want to do is build a house. Centrally air conditioned, 10,000 square feet, swimming pool, this, that. It's at complete odds with the village. So what have you done? You've actually done a disservice to the environment and to the people here. So when you decide to come here, you have to adopt the lifestyle also. And not just the benefits, you also have to integrate into the community. You have to speak in the local language, you have to attend the local weddings, the local funerals, you have to get involved in their lives, sukh dukh mein. You have to be part of that. You can't lead a isolated, city, rich person life in a poor village. You have to really integrate with them. When we decided to finally start building the house and moving into Ananda as our primary and permanent residence, we knew that we couldn't build a conventional cement and steel house because that would be an insult to the ecosystem that we had built. So our house is made of rammed earth, stone and lime. When we were building this house, we wanted to build something that would last at least 100 years so that we are not burdening our children with the expense and the effort of renovating this house constantly. Building a house like this costs as much as a normal house would in terms of absolute amounts. But the difference is that in a normal modern house, you probably spend 70% of the budget on materials and 30% on labor. But in a house like ours, we spent 70% of our budget on labor and 30% on material. And we are happy that we've put money into people's pockets instead of blowing it up on materials. It took 20 months to build. And I know that during that time, many of the people who worked on our house earned enough money to build a house of their own in the village. And so for us, this is a way for us to sort of transfer the wealth back into the countryside, back to the poorer sections, back to smaller towns and boost that economy. I think city life is great while you're earning and going to an office. If you're not earning in the city, it is my personal belief that you should not be living there. We need to make way for other people to live. That'll help reduce the overcrowding that we are seeing in these cities. In fact, instead of doing this, I find that a lot of people are bringing their parents from small towns to big cities. Even when we used to live in Bombay, like many times we would invite our parents to come see us. And my father, I remember, used to feel extremely claustrophobic in my house. He used to sit in the balcony all the time. And that time I used to feel a little offended, that what is this? You're coming to my house and feeling claustrophobic. But now I understand what that feels like. We feel we have the most luxurious lifestyle. We feel this is real wealth, being surrounded by clean air. Ask people who live in Gurgaon, who live in Delhi, who live in Noida, what is clean air and how much value that has. Ask people who are now eating contaminated food and suffering from cancer, that what is the value of clean food? These are invaluable things. Again, the way we socialize with people has changed. In Mumbai, we would meet larger groups of people over brightly lit evenings. Now we meet smaller groups of people in dimly lit evenings. In fact, we've probably had more friends visiting us here in the last 2 years than in the last 20 years. So it's been really, really wonderful. And I doubt if I was living in the city that we would have had so many visitors who would come and spend, 2-3 days with us at a stretch. So when we bought this land, it was a barren, degraded piece of land. So in 2010, we actually learned about permaculture from a friend. And when we heard about permaculture, that's when we thought that this was something we could do. Permaculture stands for permanent agriculture, which means how can we create permanent human settlements which are more stable, which don't degrade the environment that they live in, and which will give us all the resources that we need for ourselves, but at the same time not ravage the environment around us. So how can we take without depleting? We grow about 120 to 150 food crops, starting from cereals like wheat and millets. We grow all pulses, all dals. We grow probably about 50-60 vegetables across winter and summer. We grow all our own spices. We also grow oil seeds like peanuts, sesame and sunflower. So we have our own source of oil. So our philosophy is we grow what we eat and we eat what we grow. If we are not able to grow something, we assume that it is not the right food for our bodies. Till the time that we were working, I think we were so busy working, we had no time to manage our investments. 2016, my husband stopped working, so he had more time on his hands, and then he could really start looking at our own financial planning a little bit better. And I think he's arrived at the best sort of portfolio mix, which gives us both long-term gains as well as short-term liquidity. 40% of our savings would be in real estate. 35% of our wealth would be in equity mutual funds, 15% would be in debt mutual fund, and about 10% would be in gold. So the 40% which is in real estate also includes Ananda, and that is giving us a return on a daily basis as well, because we use this land to produce our own food, and it's our home. For everybody who thinks that they are going to buy a piece of land in the countryside, start growing food and then sell that food and make some money, let me share my experience. What I have realized is that there is no money in selling food, and the reason being that we live in a poor country where food will always be cheap. So what I recommend to people is to always diversify their revenue streams when they take on a project like this, and by all means keep your surplus food as one of the streams of income, but not the only one. So what I've tried to do here at Ananda is actually I have 7-8 streams of income. I'm a seed saver, so I have a seed bank of my own, and I actually run an online seed shop. So that's one of my sources of income. People come for permaculture tours. That's my second source of income. I run sustainable house tours. I run farm stays here. I do online consultations for people who are designing their own permaculture farms or building their own sustainable homes. I run permaculture courses online, and I run a YouTube channel which also gets me money from advertisers. So that's my seventh source of income. And then of course I sell my food. So I actually have 8 buckets of revenue, and that is what helps me to get enough money to run this farm and to make this whole project self-sufficient. So Ananda has been built over 10 years with a lot of effort from not just me, my husband and our children, but also a lot of the villagers who joined this project and became part of our farm staff. So our children have actually worked on this land from the time that they were 7 and 10. So they have grown up with Ananda, and they have a very strong sense of bonding with this place, which is different from projects that people take on once their children have left home. I meet a lot of people who say, this is my retirement plan, I'm going to do it when I retire. But what happens then is that the children are no longer part of it. And when you die, the kids have only looked at it as a piece of land that was bought by their parents, and they can only think of selling it because they have no emotional attachment to it. So I strongly encourage people to start a project like this in parallel to your day jobs. Firstly, that time you're earning incomes, so you don't worry about expenses that much. You know, you can afford things. At retirement, you only have a passive income. You don't want to take on large-scale projects that time because you might dip into your savings. If today I had to walk into the land that I had walked into in 2010, I don't think I would have had the energy to do the same work. So a lot of times when people do financial planning, they keep in mind that they need to leave an inheritance for their children. I mean, I hear this all the time, कि you know, एक घर यहाँ ले लेते हैं, एक वहाँ ले लेते हैं, एक इसको छोड़ देंगे, एक उसको दे देंगे, or you are buying jewelry, or you're buying, you know, things to give to your children. What we forget is, if our children cannot breathe clean air, if they can't drink fresh water, if they don't have unpolluted food to eat, तो वो ये सारे पैसे का करेंगे क्या? What are they going to do with all this money? You know, one of the things my kids tell us, Mummy, Papa, we know you did your best. Okay, so we know the world's going to be tough for us, but we know that you've done your best. So you don't feel guilty about anything. And that's a big thing.
Thank you for watching and supporting our channel. If you like the stories we tell, here's your chance to be a part of it. If you or anybody you know has an interesting financial journey to share, then please fill the form in the pinned comment below and we'll get in touch with you.